This afternoon, I am so happy to have two folks that I've worked with quite a bit. They were actually one of the very first financial institutions I worked with when I joined GreenCheck, and that is Highpoint Community Bank, represented by Jane DeBat, who is Vice President of Retail Services, and Tim Tierney, who is Senior Vice President of Retail Banking. Jane and Tim, I'm so glad that you're here today to talk about your journey to cannabis banking. We're going to talk through, the good, the bad, the ugly, right? What are all the things you want to consider as you're contemplating whether or not this is a good fit for your institution and so on? I don't know if you want to give a little bit of background about Highpoint, just a little bit. I know you've shared a quote with us, which I've put up on our screen here, but if you want to talk just a little bit about sort of why you decided to explore cannabis banking for Highpoint as sort of our jumping off point, I think that would be great.
All right, I'll get us started. Good afternoon, everyone. Highpoint Community Bank has been around for 136 years, and we serve Southwest Michigan. And as far as cannabis banking, the conversation, Jane and I had a conversation maybe June of 2021 or early July, and it was really two things. One, cannabis adult and medical use is legal in Michigan, and the fact that it's legal and it's important that there is banking and banking resources for those businesses. We also looked at it as a revenue opportunity, but we looked at it more in longer term. We're going to get into it. We're going to be in it for a long time, and that's how we started the process. And that's the early stages of the process. And, we're well over a year past that time, but as we'll probably get into with some questions here, there's a lot that we learned. Yes. There's a lot that we didn't know what we didn't know. We're still learning, but it's just, it has been a good journey for us.
That's great to hear.
And I as Tim mentioned, we're a community bank, and I just think it fits in nicely with our mission to be part of our communities, to provide banking services to all. And cannabis is legal. Prior to making the decision to develop the program, we spent a lot of energy trying to prevent cannabis from banking at the institution. And to me, it was just as difficult. So why not develop a program, develop a partnership, and go down the path?
Excellent. Well, we're certainly happy that you did. So as you were looking to sort of explore this space, did you have to address any kind of reluctance about banking cannabis, either within your institution or externally?
We were fully transparent from the beginning. And GreenCheck helped us tremendously. We have a well-known institution in our backyard who's been doing it successfully for, one of the pioneers. So it wasn't unknown to our board of directors or management staff. They were ready and willing to go. I mean, we developed the risk assessment, presented it to them, and they all agreed this is the journey that we need to start. Okay. So really, and from a customer feedback, initially we were, what's perception, so on and so forth, but I haven't really ran across any pushback or negativity. I think most people realize it's legal and these businesses have a right, and we have the ability to offer banking services to them. So,
yeah. And we prepared for all of that too.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think were the most critical aspects of developing and building your program? What stood out to you as, perhaps the most challenging, but also maybe the most critical?
Well, we wanted to have a compliant program. Mm-hmm. We knew that right from the beginning. We're a conservative bank. We have a great relationship with our auditors and examiners. doing things the right way, and that everything that it was compliant, that it was well documented. We also knew as we were kind of getting in, as we were going down this path, we knew we were going to need a partner, and that's where Green Check came in. And we looked at other partners as well, and Green Check was a great fit for us, and helped us with the things that we didn't know, and still help us with the things that we didn't know. I would, we just wanted to make sure that we got this right. And, we wanted to stand it up as fast as we could, but we didn't want any shortcuts either. So I think, everything has worked as, for the most part, as we thought it would, as far as being compliant. A lot of documentation, there's a lot of work in the early stages, but that pays off.
And like Tim said, we did not know what we did not know. There's really, without Green Check, providing the roadmap and feedback, other institutions obviously had to do the same. So no one is really handing over, their policy and procedures and pricing and that type of thing to another institution. So without the partnership, it would have been very difficult, if not impossible.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, the fact that you have a great relationship with your regulators. When did you first contact them about your intention to bank cannabis, and how did they respond? And do they have any concerns, or sort of what was their thought process, or what was their feedback?
No, other institutions have led the way. So, it's not a concept or a program that's, unknown to them. The main advice was just make sure that your written policy and procedures reflect your current processes. And we have learned that it's a very fluid program. You're constantly adjusting what you require, how you do it, so on and so forth. And that needs to be reflected in your written procedures. That's the first place they're going to go, is request the procedures, and then look at how you're currently handling. Yeah. So that was, and so they provided good information. Yeah, I didn't receive a sense that they were, against it at all. So it's legal.
So when you decided, or as you were deciding how to structure your program, maybe share a little bit about how you structured it? Do you have sort of dedicated business development people? What does a program for Highpoint look like, as far as those who interact with customers, and then those who are sort of tasked with that ongoing sort of monitoring and, account refresh, documentation refresh, that kind of thing?
Well, we really didn't want to add staff because our intent was to gradually, like a controlled growth. So we could learn as we went along. And with Green Check, obviously, that provides us more latitude in the operational area before we add staff. But we have business development people that made it their goal. They wanted to participate, along with our cash management officer, and Tim and I.
Yeah, you're looking at two of them.
Yeah, we've been to many a dispensary, many a grower. I'm like a pointer at this point in time. I can smell it, figure out where it's. Tim looks for the fences, but yeah. So we meet every week, and we have a list of prospects, and we just keep on it. Keep getting our name out there. Also, just participating in various cannabis organizations. The West Michigan Guild has been invaluable to learn about the challenges facing the cannabis industry in Michigan. And Michigan does a lot of things right, but it's just, in a business cycle at a certain point at this point. So.
Excellent. And have you participated in any industry events, things like that? Is that something you have incorporated into sort of your outreach?
We did, not really, we did in Michigan Biz. Or Biz.
Yeah, we have, like with the Community Bankers of Michigan. I know that one of our calling officers, Becky, was involved in that. Anything, a lot of things that are online, we're involved with that too. We've been doing this now long enough to where I think we've got some expertise, a lot of lessons learned. We'll be much smarter in 2023 than we were in 2022. So I know that at the Cannabis Guild that Jane was talking about, I know that we'll be more engaged in their panels as we move forward.
Excellent. So how do you, Highpoint, how do you determine whether a potential business is a good fit? What are the things that you're looking for, sort of initially, and then as they're submitting information that you require, what are the things that stand out to you that you could share that you're looking for to determine whether or not it's the right fit for Highpoint?
Well, most of our customers, we had a site visit first. It was part of a call. I mean, that's very enlightening to see the business, the operations, etc. And then, uploading the information. Obviously, it's partnership and communication, has to flow both ways. So if there's a reluctance to provide information, that's sort of a red flag. Because we're willing to assist in uploading and so on and so forth. We haven't had too many people reluctant. They're just busy people. And obviously they have a business to run, so we're sensitive to that too. We do Google searches. I mean, obviously you probably covered that in your presentation as part of the due diligence. So we do what we can prior to extending the offer.
Excellent. And so in your community, you talked about there being a financial institution, a well-known financial institution in your backyard, but who do you perceive as your competition beyond that financial institution? Are there others banking cannabis? And is there competition with regard to things like, I don't know, cash and sort of working with other types of businesses, money service businesses, things like that? Is there any competition within that community, within the cannabis banking community, to go to a financial institution as opposed to working with someone else? What are you hearing?
There's some, we have two well-known financial institutions in Michigan that were early adapters. They went in, they were able to charge high pricing. And we look at that as an opportunity to, hey, let's look at your statements. We can extend you a quote. But credit unions are in the space.
Yeah, they're definitely
a lot
in
of
the
credit
space.
unions.
But the credit unions are they're in the space, but they're also pretty vulnerable. Most of them don't have they have not done enough due diligence. I'll put it that way. Not all of them are in that business anymore because of it. Where the banks, the community banks are have done more of their homework. But the competitors, really in Michigan, for as many banks as there's really not a lot of financial institutions that are in the cannabis business, and even less on the lending side.
Okay. And talk a little bit about lending. You brought up lending, and I know this is something that you're sort of adding on to the offerings for cannabis related businesses. Do you want to talk a little bit about your lending program?
Yeah, when we started our cannabis banking program, initially we knew we were just going to get into it from a standpoint of deposits and some of our other ancillary services, support services. but we always wanted to get into lending. We knew that there was an opportunity here. And the lending side of it is really, it's commercial real estate. But to be able to do it at more favorable loan to value, more favorable rates and fees. And we've found that there's some pretty strong investors that are in this business, that are supporting these businesses. And in a lot of cases, they're looking to get some of their money out. Kind of the same thing. We were very transparent with the board, and we're able to get that through recently. So, I mean, it is brand new for us. I would say not even 30 days. But I know that a common theme when we would go out visiting, whether it's growers or dispensaries, even some of the, I would call conventions that we've been to or smaller meetings, they all ask the question, are you lending? Will you do lending? So we've heard that enough times to where we're starting that process, but we did a lot of due diligence with that too, and reached out to others that have been doing it, and they gave us some good advice on where to start, and kind of the same thing. We're going to start slow and build it up. We look at this as, it's not a 1-year play or a 3-year play. We want to be in this arena for years to come.
Excellent. I think it's great to have institutions that really take that perspective and are looking to provide fairly priced products and services to the industry. I think it's really critical to help that industry thrive. One question I have is, now that you've launched a program, what advice would you give to other financial institutions who are thinking about entering this space?
Yeah, now that a year into it, I have a comfort level. It's not, as scary, if you will.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I thought it would be this intense, labor-intensive process. And don't get me wrong, there's definitely more work than the average. But if anyone is familiar with BSA and all the work that goes around compliance with that regulation, and I suspect a number of people on the call are, it's just another level. So you just got to peel the onion back and layer by layer, and develop your procedures, and be willing to adapt to new circumstances. And
I wouldn't get into this without a partner.
Yeah.
Because all you're going to do is add more FTE, and you may or may not get it right. It's going to cost you more in the end, and your risk is going to be much higher. And I also think you need to, as you're thinking about it, you got to visit some facilities, whether it's a dispensary or a grower. We thought when we launched our program that we would be doing dispensaries. That's where we'd be. And we found that, and we do some dispensaries, but we do more growers than dispensaries. And growers they're easy.
Mm-hmm.
There's less cash, and it's just easy. It's an easier business, just like other businesses are. Non-cannabis businesses are easier to handle. But spend the time, be transparent, and this is not if you're looking at this as a quick way to make revenue, that's not the right way to look at it. I'd say if you're going to get into it, you need to get into it, be willing to do it for several years.
Thank you. I was just going to say, do you have questions that you would like to ask our guest this afternoon?
Oh, yes, I was just going to pop in. But again, Jane and Tim, thank you so much for your time and for trusting GreenCheck and for joining us today. You do have a fair amount of questions that several of them are from anonymous attendees. So I don't know if it's the same person asking all the questions or multiple anonymous attendees. But one of them is, you've touched on it. They asked, did Highpoint evaluate any other options? And you did through the process. And I think there question was, what was your evaluation criteria? What was the thing that made you decide, one option over another? What really swayed you?
The other option we looked at, I mean, they're very well known in the industry. They're a great company, but their risk assessment process was split off, or phased to another individual in Colorado. And I just like the fact that under the same umbrella, Green Check had both the risk assessment process and also the software. So that was, and price is always a factor too, but I liked the fact that we had both under the same umbrella.
Yeah, and every time we needed a template, so we have to do a board presentation. Well, how do you do a board presentation on the cannabis business and getting into it? Green Check had that. And it was important for us and risk modeling to have all those things that we could pull off the shelf. And granted, that's part of the fee that you pay, but it made it easier on us to be able to.
And Julie was part of our board presentation.
Yeah.
I mean, she was just in that, because we knew literally there was no one in the industry that we could turn to and say, hey, how you doing this? How are you pricing? What's been your experience?
Yeah.
Everyone had to start from scratch. And it was almost like you have to start from scratch too. So so that's where it was just invaluable to work with Green Check. Yeah.
Well, you've touched on something that, I'm sure you've been asked. This person, I know it's a sensitive thing, but without getting into details, they asked, what's the average fees and what are the services offered? And I would say, if you're not comfortable talking about fees.
No, I don't have any problem with that. I mean, I'll be general. I can tell you, when we started, we thought we could get like $1,200, $1,700 a month.
Yeah, we're nowhere near that.
No. Especially where the industry is at in Michigan. It's just in a business cycle, a point of business cycle where there's a lot of mergers and consolidation, and the pricing has gone down. But that was almost a perfect time to enter, because we could come forward with more realistic pricing. So I would say we do have a flat monthly service fee, and then we have a tier for deposits.
For deposits.
Yeah.
And
it's all negotiated.
Yes.
It's all negotiated.
Yeah, we look at everyone different, because in some cases there may be very low cash.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about a grower and you're not dealing with cash, then it's pretty simple. It might be the standard monthly fee plus a small monthly deposit fee. Where if it's a dispensary where there's a lot of cash coming in and out, that's different, because there's more for us to verify. I will tell you, if you're thinking about getting into this business, one of the things that we went back and forth, and it was a lesson learned for us, is once we start the process with someone, we charge them an application fee, and it's non-refundable, because you're going to do a lot of work. And if you're going to do that work and then they end up saying, I'm going to stay where I'm at, I'm going to go with someone else, we've yet to have someone go with someone else with us. I mean, our pricing has been to the point, now they might stay with who they have, but we haven't lost anyone based on our pricing. And we've changed our pricing. You've got to be flexible. You've got to look at within your institution what makes sense. I mean, you have to you've got to certainly make money in doing this, and you have to charge for the risk too, which we do. But like Jane said, we're getting into this at a good time, because many of them, we look at what their fees are and we just go, oh my God, it's terrible. So but everyone's different. We've asked a lot of other companies about other financial institutions about fees, and They don't say much.
No, I don't say anything.
They'll share policies and procedures, but not,
And some of them have to sign, some of the individuals we deal with have to sign an NDA.
yeah.
So, you know, that sort of complicates matters. But,
But we charge a different fee,
Mhm.
that monthly fee that Jane talked about. For a dispensary, it's a little higher than what it is for a grower, only because there's less transaction on it.
Alrighty. So there are a couple of questions. I think a quick one that we can knock out is, did you have to add any staff? I think you said that.
no, we did,
You didn't have to.
yeah, we relocated in the operations area, which I'm in charge of. We relocated staff, or tasks, I should say. And between the staff, we freed up time for with one FTE. And then the BSA officer obviously heads the cannabis banking program downstairs. But so no, like I said, we're looking at the software to do its work until we grow up to the point where we need to add FTE.
We put together a 5-year plan,
Yeah.
and in year 3, we would be looking to add staff. Now, we also set a number for how many we wanted to have in each calendar year. And we'll get to that number this year. And we'll probably get to the number that we're looking for in 2023 pretty quick. And the lending program will also drive deposits, because we would never consider lending to any grower or dispensary without having their main deposit.
And in addition to Green Check, I should add, we do utilize Verifin, which is a popular monitoring software.
And that is one thing, Julie, that you often say is that replace your software. It is meant to complement your software, because we don't focus on cannabis.
Mhm.
Would you mind sticking around for a couple extra minutes? I know that we have more questions.
Sure, we'll be happy to answer them.
All right. And folks, if you're here, we'd love for you to be able to stick around. If you have to go, totally understand it. You will get a copy of the recording in a couple of days, a link to it. But hopefully you can stick around, particularly if you've asked one of these questions. So let's see. There's 2 that are about cash couriers, so I'm going to kind of combine them. One is, do you require businesses to use a cash courier service? And the other one is, I see on your website you offer armored courier services with a third party for the large cash movement involved with these transactions, or these accounts. Has setting up this relationship been difficult, considering the third parties might have regulations and things they're afraid to get involved in with transporting, since they're responsible for handling MRB cash? Have you had any difficulties? So I guess the question is, do you require cash transport, and has it been difficult to find cash transport that would work with marijuana?
Oh, no. But I will say that we don't use the same cash transport that we do on the bank side. That's with Loomis, and as far as I know, Loomis is not in the cannabis transport business. There are a couple of well-known cash couriers. Imperial, Total Armored.
Total Armor, yeah. We're working with another one right now too.
And we're working with another one too. So it's not difficult. Usually the agreement for the customer pickup is between the armored car and the customer. And then we obviously have an agreement with the cash courier for the Bolt.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you don't want it's not a wise idea to have multiple, especially on your operations staff, if you have to manage multiple Bolts. You just sort of happen that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's usually a flat fee. They transport the money to Fed, and then we receive credit, and that's how it gets into the system. There's also, we don't have any customers with smart safes. I know that, the armored car companies do like them because they tend to be more accurate with the deposit amount than the human being bundling it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's always an option out there too.
And we do require the cash they have to work with one of these companies, and that's the relationship that, like Jane said, the agreement that they set up with that company. It works fairly well. We just didn't want the cash in our branches, and the reality is the cash stinks. So
I was in a financial institution that would accept cash in branch, and they had a giant Febreze candle over their little vault that they had for cannabis.
Yeah, and there was a credit union that had a cease and desist order against them, and I was reading the just the breakdown of why, and they accepted cash at the teller, but it overwhelmed
them.
Yeah, it overwhelmed it, because you're talking high amount of deposits and resources devoted to that, and it just they couldn't service the regular customers. Yeah, so there's that too.
I think
And plus it's dangerous to have that type of money sitting in a branch vault.
And it's not when we talk to a grower, but in most cases a dispensary, we talk to the owners and managers and tell them it's not safe for you to transport this cash.
Yeah, that's another.
That's the last thing you want to do is transport, I'll just make this up, $20,000 to the bank.
Yeah.
You are putting yourself and the business at risk.
Yeah.
Couple more. Let's see. There's a question. Do you service any out of area businesses? That's the whole question, but what I'm going to interpret it as, you are in Michigan, you're in Western Michigan, right?
Yeah, we're in Southwestern Michigan. We go a little further.
We go a little further.
We don't go out of the state.
Yeah, you
So we definitely go further outside of Southwest Michigan.
And would you consider, if someone in Detroit was looking for an account or something like that, would you consider going that far?
Yeah, that we would have to really think about that, just because we have sort of West Michigan, more toward South Michigan.
We haven't said no to anything. And some dispensaries or growers have facilities in multiple parts of the state. So that's different too. If we're gonna bank one of them, we'll bank them all. So we would kind of look at the entire relationship. But yeah, we've already broken this is our market area. We got out of that pretty fast.
Yeah, we expanded that.
Yeah.
That kind of goes into a question here. What do you look for when performing site visits? So you talked about it a little bit earlier, you touched on it. You can go and, you can kind of get a sense of if this is someone you want to work with. But when you've been going on site, what are the things that you've picked up on that have either given you a good feeling or maybe a not so good feeling? What are those things that you keep your eyes out for now?
I can't think of any negative. I mean, we do have we use your form, and we sort of tick through that in the back of our mind. There's certain
we want to make sure that the license is there, the security's there.
They have to, on the grower side, they have to, even the dispensary, they have to log you in, you have to provide ID. And they're very conscious of what they need to do, and they follow it. Obviously, they don't want anything to jeopardize. I haven't been where it's been like,
no, in the grow facilities, kind of the same thing. Just want to make sure that the security is a little different. It's not like it's a dispensary where people are going in and buying anything, but that the cameras are there. In most cases, it's fenced in. The dispensaries, even though they come in all different sizes, are basically set up the same way, where there's the entrance area, kind of where you have to sign in, and the secure area, and then you go back in where the product is, and then in the way back might be some more security or vault too. But we wear
foot or clogs at one.
Well, yeah, when you go to grow facilities, sometimes they do have you take your shoes off, put something over your shoes. They might have you wear hair bonnet, a little, you know, whatever. Hey, when in Rome. But we have really, we have not run into a situation. They're well run.
Mhm.
And if there's something that doesn't look good, maybe it's just not in a desirable area, we're probably not going to it anyways.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sticking around. There is one last question. It's about fees again. People always ask about fees. You've explained, you know, that your fees are variable, but the second part of this is, what does it include? So we know that what we call kind of cannabis banking 1.0 was, you can put your cash here and that's it. So when you're looking at the market, when you were looking at what you were going to put together, what is it that a marijuana business would have if they were able to open an account with you?
We intend to bank them like any other business.
Yep.
So we offer ACH origination, domestic wires. We did get into an international wire incident. It was just to Canada.
Yeah, debit cards.
Okay. Yeah.
Online, mobile, I mean, like you
yeah.
had mentioned that. And the other thing that we do is we always tell them we will bank their employees. We've run into many situations where they are banking, the business is banking at, we'll call it ABC Credit Union or Bank, but they won't bank their employees. And we will, and we'll do loans and mortgages and all that as well.
All right. So someone does want you to know that they really appreciate you here. They say, thank you. I've enjoyed your section of the presentation. It was very informative. And I would echo.
Thank you.
All right. So there is one last question, but it's about Green Check. Julie, I can hand it back over to you if you want to just bring us through the end. I know I've said it 90 times already, but I'll say it 90 more times. Jane and Tim, thank you so much for your time. Okay. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see ya.
Have a great day, folks.
Bye. So just really quickly to recap, this sort of depicts our cannabis banking journey. So we really do work with institutions to help them define their preliminary goals of a program. Again, what is your why? Why are you doing this? And then we work with them to help them develop a formal initiative through education. The risk assessment that Jane and Tim talked about is pretty extensive and really does help you understand and sort of bring forth the risks of a program, but also really help you identify ways to mitigate that risk to a level that, you know, ideally meets the risk appetite for your institution. We certainly work with folks to complete a financial analysis, develop a policy, as well as procedures and product offerings. We've reinforced this multiple times, but we absolutely do encourage you to have discussions early on with your examiners, auditors, and other critical service providers. And all of that typically brings you to the point where you're putting a formal presentation in front of your board for them to sort of take into consideration and decide whether or not they would like to move forward with a program for an institution. And if the answer is yes, and they continue to partner with Green Check, then we work with them on building a program and then eventually launching a program, which includes staff training, working through the operational requirements, et cetera. And then we even go a step further. And I mentioned this at the beginning, as part of our ecosystem, one of the things that we offer to the financial institutions we work with is that when we come across businesses that might be a good fit for them, we try to sort of employ this matchmaking service of sorts so that we can match businesses with institutions that are ready and willing to bank them. So moving forward, I want to just talk very briefly about sort of two different approaches that Green Check has worked with financial institutions as far as sort of considering a program. I just talked through the steps of co-developing a board presentation, which includes all the steps laid out here. I won't repeat that again, but I also want to share that we've also worked with institutions who have previously launched a cannabis banking program. Perhaps it is a manual program that they're looking to, now make use of software to maybe monitor to manage in a more efficient manner. So we do work with institutions to review their existing programs, make suggestions with regard to updates on policies and procedures, help them implement our software package, work with their staff to get them trained and customize the software itself in order to manage their program in the way that is the right fit for them. And then we help, continue partner with them to help them grow their program. One other partnership that GreenCheck has is a partnership with Bankers Web. We're offering an accredited cannabis banking professional certification that actually Paul leads. Paul, do you want to talk a little bit about this one?
Yeah, I know that we have far run out of time. I appreciate the 39 folks who have stuck around to the very, very end. But basically, at the beginning, I said we're just scratching the surface, even though it's 2.5 hours. And I think you can see this. This is an 8-hour course with 8 sessions that will walk you through everything we've touched on in depth. There is a significant discount for those of you who attended. So if you're curious, reach out to us and we'd be glad to set you up with that.
And then finally, GreenCheck is out on LinkedIn. So when you get this presentation, our links are there, as well as a link to GreenCheck's homepage and Paul's information and my contact information. Please don't hesitate to reach out directly, connect with us. We'd be happy to provide you more information, have conversations with you, and maybe help you on your journey to cannabis banking.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Julie. I really appreciate what you went through for all of our folks and sharing your experience as someone who does actually build these programs with financial institutions. So thank you for your time. Thank you for everybody's time, for being so generous joining us today. And on behalf of GreenCheck, thank you so much. If there's ever any question you have, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And I hope you have a great day.
Have a great afternoon.
Bye, folks.